This week on Keep Digging, I sat down with Kyle and Arielle Black. We talk about their 4-year-old son Christian and his 2-year fight with leukemia, how it's affected their family and strengthened their faith. All right, guys, let's do this. Let's get to the show.
Faith, family, fight. Going through the fight of your life?
How you want to fight?
You're not alone. Keep digging. Keep digging. Keep digging. It's time to keep digging, and here's your host, Gran Roberts.
Man, guys, do you ever get sick and tired of being sick and tired? Well, that's kind of where I'm at. I'm getting over the holidays right now, and I am ready to start 2019. Guys, welcome to Keep Digging. I'm your host, Gran Roberts. Welcome to episode 8. Keep Digging is the only podcast dedicated to faith, family, and fight, the fight of life. The podcast is available on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Play Podcasts, Podbean, Stitchers, and Spotify, plus wherever else podcasts are available. You can also listen from our website at keepdigging.podbean.com. So you want to support the website? Well, it's pretty easy. You can do that by sharing the episodes on your social media accounts, subscribing, rating it, or writing us a review. If you could do that, we would greatly appreciate that. You know, guys, today we're going to be talking about something that is actually very near and dear to my heart and my situation. We're going to be talking about sickness, how it affects your faith, and how you go through life, and how that same sickness brings you different trials, but also brings you blessings. You know, many of you don't know, I know many of you do, but many of you don't know my struggle. I've kind of hinted to it throughout different episodes of Keep Digging. I've dealt with congestive heart failure for 10 years. Over that 10 years, I watched my heart kind of steadily lose function. And about 4 months ago, I had an LVAD implanted. And that LVAD it's working. It's doing its job, but it's just a temporary solution until I can get ready for a heart transplant. I'm currently working towards that. Guys, I'd be lying if I didn't say I had bad days. I had struggles. I do. And on those tough days, you really need a support system. For me, I'm really lucky. I got my wife, I got my family, kids, and I have a huge network of friends that are my family and Fight Club brothers all around the state here that I can go to. And it's been such a huge comfort to me. But the greatest blessing I have is my faith. And I'm able to deal with my issues and find comfort in it. Often we think about our issues and what we're struggling with as a limiting factor in our lives. But I'm a firm believer in the fact that what I'm going through with my heart, I need to be going through it because it's actually made me a better man. When I say it's made me a better man, it's because I'm a more capable Christian now because of my issue. When I was completely healthy, I wasn't able to serve God like I should have been. But much like Paul, this thorn in my flesh, if you will, has kept me grounded, kept me thinking, it's kept me on task. If you go to 2 Corinthians 12, 8 through 10, it says, 3 different times I begged the Lord to take it away. Each time he said, my gracious favor is all you need. My power works best in your weakness. So now I am glad to boast about my weakness, so that power of Christ may work through me. Since I know it is all for Christ's good, I'm quite content with my weaknesses, and with insults, hardships, persecutions, and calamities. For when I am weak, then I am strong. There's a lot of truth in that. I noticed that I became a more equipped, capable Christian when I had a weakness to deal with, because it makes you appreciate life, makes you appreciate the time that you have with your family, and it causes you to really focus on how you're using that time. You start to realize how precious life is, but the greatest thing about it is you start to see God in the details. You start to see God work. You start to see how God is moving the chess pieces around in your life, how he's connecting the dots. And when you can see that, then you are capable of doing great works. You are capable of truly serving God in a way that is pleasing to him. And you become effective. In our weaknesses, we're able to get people to listen. A lot of times they see what you're going through and they respect the fight. And that's a great thing. It's a great tool to draw people to you. And it's something that can't be discounted. There's a reason that we have the issues that we have. Now, did God give them to us? No. But God allowed them to happen. But then God also equipped us with an amazing network of friends, family, and the ability to go to his word and to fight it, provide comfort. And I am bound and determined, regardless of how this works out, to use my weakness as a tool to bring others to Christ. And I'm not the only one that looks at this situation that way. I have some great friends, Kyle and Arielle Black, and their 4-year-old son Christian's been battling leukemia for 2 years now. And I can only imagine what that's like. Christian is a great kid. He's funny. He's a delight to be around. And honestly, at times you'd never know the kid has leukemia. He's been fighting it for a couple years, and you can imagine what it'd be like as parents having to constantly see your child go through chemotherapy, go through all the testing. I mean, I have my rough days, and I have the tests I have to take, but when it comes to Christian's situation, that kid's a warrior. I look up to Christian. Christian handles this, and he handles it well. And the way he's able to look at his situation and still be a kid, still appreciate life and still enjoy it, man, what a blessing. And we're going to talk to the family about their journey, what they've gone through, and how the journey has actually increased their faith and allowed them to serve in a greater way. Guys, when we're going through medical issues, it's never pleasant, but it sure is a blessing when we run into people that are going through a medical journey of their own. Kyle and I have a friend in common, our friend Brad, and he connected us. We connected with them and we went to support them at a fundraiser. And, it's just a true gift when you can speak to another Christian, another person that gets the journey that you're on, because you can provide comfort to each other. And that's what the Blacks have done for us. I'm especially grateful for Christian and his fight, because when I'm going through the tough times of my fight, when I was coming out of LVAD surgery, I thought about that little boy. I thought about the fight that he's been doing. And I thought, if he can get through his fight, I can get through mine. So his weakness gave me strength. And that's how we need to think about those things. So guys, let's do this. Let's dig.
It's time now. The Dig.
And it is time to dig. Guys, welcome to the Roberts Family Compound this morning. I'm hanging out with some friends this morning that have a similar battle to what we're going through. While it's different, there's a lot of the battle that's very much the same. And my friends are Kyle and Arielle Black, and they've gone through a lot this past year. I figured this would be a great way of bringing in 2019, talking about what we've been through, where we've been, and hopefully where we're going. And we're going to kind of touch on those things. And it's going to be something that a lot of you can relate to that are going through medical issues. You're going to hear in their story a lot of struggle, but you're also going to hear a lot of glory and a lot of redemption. And you're going to see how God works. And you're going to see how he never really leaves us. Sometimes we got to go through the battle so that we can help others. And we're going to kind of touch on that. You're going to see that it's not always, sunshine and rainbows, so to speak, that there is struggle in the middle of the battle, but that struggle pays off in glory, and it pays off in blessings, and you get to see God move and God work in your life. And, sometimes those struggles are really close to your heart. We're going to hear about the first part of their story that, is painful as a parent. As we go through this, I hope you guys see the glory, and I hope you guys see the blessings within the battle, and that you guys really see how God is working and how God has used them and their struggle, much like he did Paul. Paul had a thorn in his side. There were times that Paul would rather not have it. He asked God to remove it from him a number of times. But God kept that there as a reminder, I believe, of who he was and who he is. And it gave him strength. With my heart issue, honestly, I'm a stronger man because of it. More faithful Christian because of it. And maybe that's God's purpose with my heart issue. And if that's the case, that's okay. And we'll battle through it one way or the other. And it's been a blessing to get to know these guys. 2019 is looking to be a better year, Lord willing. Guys, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
It's good to be here, Gran. Thank you.
I figured since you guys were here and you guys totally relate to our hospital adventures that my wife and I have, we play a little game today. You guys ready to play a game?
Let's do it.
We love games.
I figured since we spent a lot of time in the hospital, our technical knowledge of our biology and medical terms and whatnot are probably better than the average person's. So we're going to have a little fun with this. And, I don't expect you guys to know all these in any way, shape, or form. It's probably the fun in asking you guys these questions. Let's start off here. Which of the following procedures is used to assess the human blood vessel? Electromyography, angiography, venography, or tomography?
Angiography? Is that
correct. You are correct.
Evil laugh.
I do want to note that this isn't really fair because Arielle grew up in a nursing family.
Oh,
So she's a natural.
I didn't know that.
And her mom, her sister, her grandma were all nurses. So I grew up in a insurance and real estate family. So
So it's only fair if we ask those questions too, huh?
The islet of Langerhans is part of the pituitary, exocrine, part of the pancreas, the gonads, or the ductless part of the pancreas.
You can have that one, Kyle.
I have no idea.
Yes, A, B, C, or D.
B.
Oh, we got D. That's the ductless part of the pancreas.
Very strange.
Yep,
Okay.
very much so. Glucose is absorbed from the intestine by the process of active transport, facilitated diffusion, or passive transport.
Passive transport.
Oh, active transport. Oh.
Shucks.
Oh, guys, it's amazing to me when we get into our medical situations how little we really do know and how little we are in control of our situation, and how God puts people like doctors and nurses into our lives that know those crazy terms and crazy analogies like Isle of Langerhans, and that sounds like a vacation resort.
It does.
You know, it doesn't sound like some kind of medical term, but, you know, I'm sure there's a story there. It's those times when we start to learn about our journeys from a medical point of view that you realize, you know, there really is someone else in control of your care, of your health, of your life. That just, the first time I had that thought, it just blew me away. That God can put people into our lives that know this kind of information and uses them, even though in spite that some doctors may not believe in our faith. You know, guys, what I like to do is I want you to kind of tell me your story about your son. Tell me about this amazing little boy.
He was 2.5 when he was diagnosed. He's always been super bright, funny, charismatic, awesome, just crazy little man. And he was diagnosed when he was 2.5 in November of 2016. He had some bruising and then a little more bruising and then some facial bruising. Really no other symptoms. We took him in to get blood work done one day, and immediately an hour later we got a phone call to rush him to the emergency room because he needed a transfusion. It was pretty scary, and I got that phone call when I was alone. Christian was taking a nap and Kyle and Micah were at school, and I fell down the stairs, and it's really hard to
Suck it up, buttercup.
Yep. Thankfully, my sister was close by, and I called her immediately. She came over. She drove both of us out to Lutheran. It was a really bad day. Very, very bad day. We didn't end up getting his diagnosis until the next day, so we stayed overnight at the hospital and then got our diagnosis at 10 a.m. the next day. That night, we went down to Riley and immediately got into surgery to have his port placed and started chemo right away. And it was crazy. We were down there for a week, and even in that week, we saw so many incredible things. Like, we felt like our world was ending, but yet our church family and our friends and our family was super supportive. People came down to Indy to visit us, bring us gifts. His room was literally full of gifts and balloons and flowers by the time we left. Even in that time, there were a couple times where he started to get a fever, and I laid hands on him and prayed over him, and his temperature left, which was amazing because I didn't know if I believed in that before.
Yeah.
And we had a couple friends suggest it. That's what we did, and that's what happened. And it happened multiple times after we came home, too. It was just amazing. Like, fever over 101, laid hands and prayed on him. An hour later, his temp's 98. I mean, it's just kind of crazy, especially with his counts being so low.
Yeah.
You know, if he gets an infection or something, it can be catastrophic, or, you know, it can be even worse than normal. So
When we're down at Riley, We'd been there for quite a few days already, and exhaustion was setting in, and Arielle just needed a break. Her mom was able to come down and stay with us for a good majority of the time and help out with her nursing background and whatnot. Just have her in the corner for us, advocate, help guide us through it and whatnot. So it was me and Christian. We were laying in his bed, just playing with some toys and coloring and things like that. And all of a sudden he started spiking a fever. And so Arielle's mom comes over and kind of checks him over. And I can tell by her reaction that it's not good. And the fever climbs very quickly, and he actually starts shaking and convulsing within a few minutes of noticing that he was getting awfully hot and cheeks were getting red. And so after Arielle's mom had checked him over a little bit more, she rushed out of the room to go get some help. And that was about the time Christian really started shaking, and just looked like it was a really bad situation. I didn't realize how bad until seeing 4 or 5 nurses come running into the room. They're all working as a team to check multiple things, to hook up new machines to him, try to get him leveled off. And I remember just looking up at the ceiling, praying, as it felt like the life was leaving Christian's body, calling out to God and begging him.
That's hard as a parent to see your kid go through that. At 2.5 years old, there's a lot that we at times take for granted. Our health being one of them, and to see a little guy like that, I know I know you guys, and I know that you would gladly trade places with him. During that week and a half he's there, how's Christian handling it?
You never want to have to pick which one of your children would have to go through this. But if we were forced to, he's the one that has the fighter personality. He just loves life. Where our older son's a little more reserved and maybe a little more anxious with things. Christian is the, just jump in and see what happens. That's his personality. He handled it very well. He's always been positive and uplifting to us. He's brought us a lot of strength throughout it. Going down there, Arielle mentioned, when we first got down to Riley, you're rushing down to Indy, and it's a couple-hour drive, and this is all becoming reality. You think your world's just upside down. It can't get any worse than this. Within a couple hours of being at Riley, we realized how blessed we were, because we saw other children in a much worse situation than our boy. And within a few hours of being there, we realized how blessed we were that we caught it early, that his immune system was fighting hard naturally, protecting his body. He looks so much better than some of those poor babies we were seeing in the hospital, walking or being pushed around in wheelchairs. And we actually felt guilty after being there for a few hours because how strong and how healthy our son was in comparison. And so we were actually praying for all the families there, and definitely put us in our place and gave us perspective as to how blessed we are.
It was actually crazy. Our oncologist, who we know very well now 2 years later, told us the night before we got our diagnosis, as we were waiting for testing, if he has this form of leukemia, it's actually better than having these other kind of blood disorders that he'll have for his whole life, because there's an 85%, quote unquote, cure rate or staying in remission for the kind of cancer that he has. So we just couldn't comprehend that. And then going down to Riley and seeing these other kids on this oncology floor who have all different kinds of cancer, and just realizing, okay, maybe there is something to this. So 90% of children within the first month of treatment go into remission because they hit it so hard. Like Christian blew up huge. He was on steroids for a whole month straight, all kinds of chemo. I mean, they hit it so hard that first month. And after that first month, we were just sure he was in remission. We went down to Riley for the bone marrow biopsy. 4 days later, we got the results. Not in remission.
Oh, wow.
Whoa.
Wow.
Hit to the gut, hit to the heart. It
was really difficult because Arielle especially felt like God was telling her, everything's going to be okay. He's going to be good to go. And she was very confidently, professing that I trust my God. I hear him talking to me. I know he's in remission. And so to hear otherwise, and to find out that, at first we thought he just barely missed those numbers at that level they want him to be at. We thought he just barely missed it and said, okay, at least he's close. But he's actually at 3 times the numbers he should have been at. And so unfortunately he wasn't close like we thought.
If he would have been a girl and had hit remission that first month, his treatment plan would have been 2 years long. But since he's a boy and they so often relapse in their testicles, he has a whole extra year of treatment. So that's 3. And then because he is very high risk, because he didn't hit remission, he has an extra 6 months of intense treatment. So instead of 2 years, we're looking at 3.5 years. And that, when you first start off on that road, is like you cannot comprehend it. Having to put this poison into your child for 3.5 years.
Yeah. I could. Oh, I want to say I can imagine. I can't imagine. I know with my own battle, when they told me I had initially 2 days to live, and then they told me I had 2 years, and then God kept changing the script. Every time they would tell me you got 2 years, I'm going, I got 2 years of taking this medication. I don't like. It makes me feel bad. Oh, I just can't imagine that. And that wasn't poison. That wasn't the intense chemo. I'm talking like 6 pills. And when I hear what Christian had to go through, my heart just aches for him. I'm also blessed in how he responds to it and how he takes it, because going through my heart journey, I've thought a lot about his fight, and I've thought a lot about how that little guy is taking the punches when come his way, and he's came out grinning. And it's hard for me to have a bad day, so to speak, when I think about that little boy and what he's been through and how he handles it so well. I mean, what a blessing he is.
He is such a blessing. Within, maybe 3 days of being diagnosed, our neighbor put us in touch with another family who was a year ahead of us in the process. And they have become like best friends to us. We have a group Facebook message and we talk constantly, and we have for 2 years. Their little girl is a year off of treatment now and just went on her Make-A-Wish trip. It's just incredible seeing that and knowing that you have that to look forward to. And they've just been awesome since day one. They've been great at putting it in perspective for us, showing us that there's an end in sight, showing us that we have down days, they have down days, but we can lift each other up. They've just been amazing. And Allie, the little girl, her mom, Amy, has just been an incredible witness to me and support to me. And she has said from day one, we're not in control. We don't know if our kid lives or dies, but what are you going to do in the meantime? Do you want to make their memories happy every day that you can?
Yeah.
She's really impressed that on me. She's a really super positive, wonderful person.
Yeah, their mentorship to us has definitely been a God thing, for our neighbors to introduce us. She had worked with Allie's dad, so she knew of what they had gone through, and so that's how she had referred us over to them, and to watch how it's all unfolded. When we first talked with them, we didn't know Christian's long-term diagnosis and whatnot. As hard as it was to see Christian go into the high-risk category, not hitting the levels they wanted after that first month, the cool thing about that was Allie, the little girl, had also gone into the high risk. So for her to have the same cancer, and then basically, minus being a girl, having the exact same diagnosis and process after that, going into high risk, it was very, very apparent that God had set up that meeting to meet another Christian couple who's basically exactly a year out from the exact journey that we're going on, to guide and lead us and to prepare us for what's next. It's been a huge blessing.
Now, how far in the journey right now are you guys? Now, Christian was 2.5 when he was diagnosed. How old is he now?
He is 4.5. His end of treatment date is February 27th of 2020.
Okay.
So we're only about a year away, which is
awesome.
Really exciting. We're over halfway. We actually just started planning his Make-A-Wish trip because it takes about a year to plan. And that's pretty amazing too, to have that to look forward to.
To give us an understanding of what exactly this little guy's been through, give us some examples of the numbers of tests and the different kinds of things he's been through. Because, we were talking before the show and you'd mentioned one test and how many times he'd been through it. And I'm like, wow. I didn't realize that. Set the table for what this little dude has been through, the battle he's fought.
I'll take this one. Kyle is not great at medical stuff. Christian has had 3 bone marrow biopsies, I believe 28 spinal taps with chemo infused into his spinal fluid.
Wow.
He had 6 intense rounds of chemo that lasted 10 months straight. And this is daily and weekly and monthly treatments. Whereas now we are down to daily oral chemo and once a month treatment in clinic. That first year was just horrific. And you think, okay, after these 6 rounds of intense chemo, his hair falling out and his body deteriorating and all of these horrible things, okay, once I get to maintenance, it'll be okay. Well, we got to the maintenance where we're at right now. It's basically 2.5 years of daily chemo and other meds and stuff just to maintain the remission.
Yeah.
It didn't go as well as we thought. You're waiting for this letdown and this peace, and there just wasn't, because you're just waiting now. Now you hear more about kids relapsing. Now you hear about terrible things happening. Going into flu season. I mean, flu season every year is just like...
Christian having the port for them to ingest, his treatments, inject his treatments, if you will. If he has a fever, was it above 100.5 fever? He's a kid, goes to school. You're going to get fevers. 99% of the time, it's nothing. It's just a cold or, it's going to be an overnight thing. But because of that port, we have to go into the emergency room to make sure that he doesn't have an infection in the port, which is a direct line into his heart and could kill him. Last winter, we had, bad flu season. We ended up in the ER, 3 times over the winter. Most of them were for a day or two. Thankfully, one of them, I think we were able to come home that same night. But this completely, disrupts your life. And of course, some of these happen around the holidays. And, there's a lot of, something I've learned with this is there's so many things that happen outside of the normal treatment that you just don't see when you're, watching someone go through it. We talked a little bit about Christian and his spinal taps. They have to put him completely under to do that. And something that's, you just never get used to after, being so worried that your child's going to pass away from this, to have to go in once a month and at this stage of the treatment and have him be put under, to hold him and watch what really looks like he's passing away. As the anesthesia, hits his body and you can see, he knows it's coming and he tries to fight it, and to watch his body just go limp. It's such a difficult thing to watch happen. Sorry.
That's the honesty in the struggle. There's nothing to be sorry about there at all. That's the realness. That's the Father in you. And, that's what I don't know about you guys, but when I'm struggling with stuff, people say they say the things that I think they feel like they're supposed to say. It's going to be okay, or God's got this. And truth is, there's times where you just don't feel that way because you're caught in the moment. And there's times, I don't know about you guys, there's times I just needed to be real. You think, man, God, when's enough? I can only imagine it's probably something that came up with Christian in his battle.
There are a lot of ups and downs for sure. It has been a roller coaster these past 2 years. Our marriage has suffered. Faith walk. There have been times of suffering. I feel like in the end, it definitely makes you stronger. But I think we're definitely huge advocates of having a good support system and making that for yourself and making sure that you have that. We have super, super close friends in our life group from church, and they have walked along with us the whole way just to give us accountability, give us a listening ear, also to be there to support them and take our minds off of ourselves. We have weekdays, but so do they. It keeps it in perspective to know that we're not the only ones struggling just because we have this quote unquote big thing going on in our lives. Because of our support system, it's not as big. Some people are going through smaller things. The world would tell them smaller things, whatever. But if they don't have the support, then it can be huge and it can be so detrimental. So I'm super thankful for our life group.
I feel like we've been very blessed. Like Arielle said, with the life group, I can imagine having gone through this experience without the church family, without faith. The amount of people that come out of the woodwork for something like this is really uplifting. Through the church family, outside of the church family, definitely feel like God was setting us up for this, having gotten into a life group, not too long before all this started, and, really dedicating ourselves to our church. And I was placed into a leadership role with, teaching a Sunday school class with 2 of my other buddies. And, It wasn't something I ever expected I would do, and just kind of got thrown into it and kind of took a leap of faith, even though I was a little scared to do it. And really glad that happened a couple years before all this, because it really strengthened my faith, my trust in God, prepared me for this situation, also made me closer with a group of men that have helped carry me and carry us through this. You've been really blessed that, Arielle's a hairstylist, does a great job and has a great clientele who her clients have been super supportive, allowing her to schedule around medical treatments. And, while there's the curse of if she's not working, she doesn't make money, there's the huge blessing of she has a career that she can schedule around the cancer and still help keep our heads above water. I'm a PE teacher in the school community. Oak Farm Montessori has been fantastic. They've been so supportive as far as needing time off. Arielle was probably kind of enjoying some of this. I don't think she had to cook for like 6 months.
I mean, it was a perk.
The amount of between our church, between our friends and family, and Oak Farm and Arielle's clientele, the people donating food or volunteering to cook for us, and some good stuff too, was a huge blessing.
When those things happen in life, when the tough times and the battles hit, you don't really know just how amazing some people can be until they're at your door.
Absolutely.
I've had complete strangers show up to help me with, my yard work, to babysit me after I got out of the hospital. Things like that would happen all the time. And I just think, man, I'm blown away continually by God's grace and by God's blessings of how he softens the hearts of people around you. People you know, people you don't know.
Yeah, that's been really incredible too. The people that we don't know, that someone we do know has shared our story on Facebook, and now they are following us, they are praying for us. Whole church families across the United States, even in different countries, are praying for us. It's shocking, but at the same time, it makes you really know why you haven't fallen totally in the depths of despair, because there are people holding you with their prayer. It's amazing.
God just setting us up for this part of life. Gran, I know you've gone through a Fight Club, and sounds like an amazing experience. And
oh yeah,
if I remember right, you're currently in Joshua's Men.
Yeah, just graduated.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Around the time of Christian's diagnosis, our church also did a J-Men program and got to be a part of that. And so, God setting me up for something I never thought I'd be strong enough to handle. And I think Joshua's Men program was a big part of that. So glad I accepted the invitation and went through the 12 months of intense training and reading.
Oh, yeah.
And we found out Christian had cancer. I'd actually just left my job in the financial sector to pursue God had been leading me towards, which was to try to step up and mentor kids in a world that is lacking male role models, fathers.
Yes.
In the home. And I just felt like we've been praying on it for a while, and I felt like he was leading me to change my career and do something more impactful. Teaching is what he was telling me to do. So, over at Lincoln Financial, downtown Fort Wayne, a very good place to work, good benefits, things like that. Took the pay cut to start teaching at Oak Farm Montessori, lose those good benefits and whatnot. I don't know if you were aware of this, but teachers don't make as much money as people in the financial sector.
I had no idea.
No, stop.
And took that leap of faith, and blessed to have a wife who can do well with her career, to give me the freedom to do that. And then 3 weeks after making that leap of faith, to come across this diagnosis, and we had just gone from corporate benefits to signing up with Samaritan Ministries. It's a Christian share network for our insurance. And, it was a little scary to do that because you weren't really aware, but our family's healthy. We both exercise, eat good. Our kids are super healthy and have had no issues. And then 2 weeks after we signed up for this program, our child's diagnosed with leukemia. And so that immediate fear of, I remember asking Arielle, I made sure to leave Lincoln on good terms, just in case, and saying, do I go back and try to get my job back or take a new role there to get back under their corporate coverage? And Arielle, just give me the confidence and to keep on the path that God had placed us on.
And you weren't even a full-time teacher. This was a long-term sub job.
Wow.
Yeah.
So no real job.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then we thought maybe kind of this hippie insurance. We didn't quite know how it was going to pan out, but they've been amazing through everything that we've been through. Samaritan has covered us 100%, and we get personal notes from people to pay our medical bills. And at this time, after 2 years, Christian's medical bills are paid up to the penny.
Wow.
We're
That's
just
amazing.
incredibly blessed by that. So that's another situation where God totally set us up for this, walk beside us and to help us through this, that we were questioning at first. How in the world is this going to pan out? Like not even a full-time job and this insurance that we had no idea how it was going to go.
Well, and that reminds me of another story I'd kind of forgotten about, choosing which insurance to go with. We had researched all those different providers, traditional insurance versus doing like a Christian share network. And it had come down to Samaritan and then Medishare, where there are our two favorites. Medishare was set up more like a traditional insurance. You have your deductible, and then they, pay after your deductible's met and whatnot. I was leaning towards Medishare. I think it had a bigger network. It was a little bit cheaper. Oh no, they had the option to do like a high deductible plan, which would make it super cheap per month. And like I said, we were super healthy. We hardly ever used our insurance. So, hey, let's go with this high deductible. And insurance is going to be really inexpensive per month by doing that. Arielle talked me out of it because she liked the mission and the business plan of Samaritan more because it seemed more godly, it seemed more biblical. And it was going to be like, I think about $150, $200 more a month to go with Samaritan. And I'm very thrifty, the financial side of me.
Sure. Most men are.
Very thrifty, very careful with my spending. I really like the idea of saving a guaranteed $200 a month. That small chance of a high deductible. We're healthy. What's the chance we're going to have to worry about a high deductible?
Yeah.
But she, easier than I would have ever expected, was able to talk me into going with the more expensive Samaritan plan. And I look back at that and this happened in, what was it, October, November when he was first diagnosed. And so if we would have been on a high deductible plan, we would have had, because we were looking at a $5,000 deductible, we were looking at a $10,000 deductible, expecting to never actually have to pay it. And that's what I was telling her. If we're saving $200 a month, we can save up that deductible pretty quick, to help pay towards that. And for her to talk me into it, and then to see what happened. If we would have had a $5,000 or $10,000 deductible starting in November, and then had that restarted all over again in January at the new year,
wow.
How quickly and how expensive that could have gotten for Samaritan to cover us the way they have. It's actually been less expensive and way better coverage than I would have seen at Lincoln with their good coverage because of the deductible setup. Not having a deductible really with Samaritan, it's like $300 is your deductible per instance. So Christian has leukemia. We pay the first $300. They cover everything else after that.
Oh, that's amazing.
Amazing. The other part of that story, God setting us up for this was, first Arielle talking me into spending the extra $200 a month because she liked their mission better. Was I had brought up, they have a save to share program. So anything above the $250,000 mark, their basic coverage covers anything up to $250,000. So you can get into a second coverage. I think it's an extra $400 per year, and that covers you for that $250,000 and on. So I'd mentioned that to Arielle. She said, maybe it would be a good idea to go ahead and sign up for that. A little iffy, like I was. We decided after talking it through that go ahead and do that. And even though we were kind of questioning it, is it really necessary? Should we go the first year without it? Maybe sign up in the second year with it? And then 3 weeks later, it becomes very apparent why God told us to sign up for that we're coming into I think it'll be $1 million situation by the time it's all said and done, plus $1 million plus. So God was definitely setting us up, between the new insurance, the additional insurance, and Samaritan Ministries has been a humongous blessing. It's actually cheaper than what I was paying for my insurance at Lincoln. To be surrounded by the Christian community, each check comes in and has a note of prayer, a note of encouragement. It's been amazing.
It's moments like that as a husband that I'm glad I have a wife that has the heart she has, and I can see you're blessed with the same kind of wife because we're very analytical in our thinking. We're looking at the probabilities. We're looking at and our wives are looking at it from a heart standpoint, and what a blessing that is. So I guess the moral of that story is we need to listen to our wives.
Yes, you got it. Broadcast that to everyone.
And to trust what they have to say. I mean, because after hearing your story, it would make total sense to me as a husband why you would have went the other route. After hearing your story, I'm sitting here thinking, well, man, why didn't he go the other route? That's how I would have handled it. But kudos to you for listening to your wife, for taking that advisement in, because ultimately it is a God thing. He is in control, and he's brought you this far, and he's going to take care of you. And you guys are seeing that.
Isn't it crazy how we think we're in control until the bottom drops out?
Oh, yeah.
And then we're just shown like, nope, never had it the whole time. But this is actually a better way.
Oh, completely.
Because we would mess it up.
I think for me, that's been the most difficult part is, being the head of the household and trying to think I'm in control of, our safety, our financial comfort, and, leading the household and trying to protect my family. To see my son being attacked by this disease, and we've already mentioned I'm not good with medical, just having nothing to offer really in this other than support. I know I'm a research guy. I like to make educated decisions when it's, big, important stuff, buying a car.
Hold on a second, even when it's not important stuff.
Well, it's a rabbit hole I tend to go down to. I like my research to a fault. When Christian was initially diagnosed, trying to, research our options. And that's been something that's been very difficult as the protector and whatnot, is to have to choose chemo when we're coming into an age where you're starting to see some alternatives. We're seeing stuff with CBD oil. You're seeing some success with medical marijuana. You're seeing some successes with high doses of vitamin C, and starting to be some research on these more natural, safer, less side effect type of treatments. These treatments, while they're seeing some successes, they're all very new.
Yeah.
And there's just not the research there to confidently go the natural route, because, we blame that for Christian's success. My wife's been a very natural influence in our family. She's got us eating healthy, somewhat organic. We were the parents that let our kids play in the dirt and, eat germs and know that it was going to make their bodies healthier.
Sure.
We've had to do the complete 180 from that with, we're constantly hand sanitizing and everything else. And that was one of the hardest things to have to do, is to say yes to the traditional treatment, because we normally don't do traditional medical or even maintenance type things with, Arielle's big into oils. We do a lot of natural type stuff around the house to keep our immune systems up. And while that was great for Christian, bruising was the only thing we're really seeing from his condition, because his immune system was so strong. It was hard to not be able to go organic in the situation, to have to do something so not organic like chemo.
That's one thing that I really struggled with, and I still really struggle with, is the loss of the motherhood that I wanted.
Yeah.
I had this set plan of, this is the kind of mother that I can be because I am in control of the situation. Nope, the rug gets pulled out from under me, and I literally can't do any of these things that I have researched and that I've tried and that I've put all of this time and energy into because I want to do it the best way. Well, that's just not life. God has really humbled me in that way, just to see that even though this is not the motherhood that I wanted, that it is still beautiful and that is still fulfilling and wonderful, that I need to give up control in that area of life and know that there are other people looking out for him. There are other things at work. It's not just me being the puppeteer, because that's not real life. And showing me that has really humbled me, but also has been a great lesson.
Arielle, I really appreciate your honesty in that, because it's something I struggle with as a husband, as a father, dealing with my own medical issues. The picture of my life right now isn't what I wanted for my wife. It's not what I wanted for my kids. And sometimes when you're going through those struggles, you kind of get lost in that. Honestly, there's been a few times I've been, me and the big guy, we've had conversations. I don't understand it. And you kind of feel alone in that. And to hear someone else say that, it makes me feel like, oh, okay, that's natural. You're normal.
And my struggles along this way have been silence. Like, that's how it comes out, because, I talk to God when things are good. But when I'm upset or I feel like, hey, he made the wrong decision, I just become silent and apathetic. And am getting there to where I sense when that's coming, and it just comes, in different seasons of life. And if I'm too quiet, it's not a good sign. And I need to tell somebody, and they need to help me through it and check myself. because God knows the best. He has the best plans for us. He wants the best for us. And it is hard being on this side when you don't see the end of it. It's really easy to question everything. Just the peace that I have from friends telling me reading it in the Bible, God does want the best for you and it will all work out in the end. In the end, we get eternity with him. And what better reward? And that is the end goal. We go through this in life and God tells us, keep going. This is what I have for you in the end. No matter what you're questioning now, it's all good in the end.
That's what I pray for with Christian, is that acceptance that, there's a chance that he may not make it through this. Even if he does make it through the initial couple of years, there's still a chance that, when we say there's a 90% success rate with this type of cancer, since he's on high risk, he's at a 85% success rate. That's really good. Super amazing. The unfortunate part is it's measuring out 5 years from remission. And so while those numbers are really good, we also wonder what happens after that 5 years. What's it like after that? And so we have to accept that, that his life might be short. And honestly, something that scares me a little bit is how amazing his personality is. The amount of times he makes us laugh in a day, the joy he brings to the people around him. I feel like he's lived half of a lifetime already for what he's put into the world in his 4 years here. So part of me is scared that maybe that's because he's not supposed to be here for a long time. But my prayer and my hope is that God is using this to build up his personality, to build up him as a man, to do amazing things for God's kingdom as he grows older. And I do feel like we've seen some hints of that. The other day on the way to school, we were talking about Gran and what you're doing with your podcast, growing God's kingdom with your experience, with your heart. I want to thank you for doing this. You've become my go-to listening material for when I work out, and it's super uplifting, and I love what you're doing here, man. But we're talking about that, and we've talked about some people, that have used their story to bring people to Christ, and my 4-year-old in the back seat says, maybe I should write a book.
I love it.
And it just completely touched me, and just hoping that was a sign from God to say, he's going to be here, and I am doing what you're praying for. I'm setting him up to do amazing things in the future through this experience. And I feel like we're getting glimpses of that. Maybe he's not going to be here for a long time. Let's say we lose him at 5. We've been given an amazing 5 years with this boy. Unlimited laughs. Who's to say if he were to die at 30, that makes it any better? He's still dying too young. Or even at 60. And he's 60 and my son dies before me, that's still too early.
Yeah.
And that's something that people have brought up to us, how can you be positive? How can you maybe even still believe in God? He's letting this happen to your kid. So at what age would it be okay for my kid to die?
Yeah.
That doesn't take away the existence of God. We've been blessed with an amazing boy for 4 years of our life that we don't deserve. And if his kingdom grows because of this experience, there's children praying for our son every night, kids from school, kids from church, kids from Facebook. We've heard lots of stories of kids who are drawn to Christian story, and they pray for him in ways that a child their age wouldn't be expected to. And the amount of families that are praying for him. If this boy is sacrificed to bring people to Christ, as hard as that would be as a parent, it's worth it, because I'm going to see him again someday.
Yeah. This life is very temporary. That's probably one of the greatest things that has laid on my heart is, I don't want to leave my kids anytime soon. But, okay, what if they have 40, 50 years without me? One day they're going to have eternity with me. And that's such a great way to think about it. I love how you put that because, you are going to have that time, if you stay the course and keep fighting, that the blessing, there's a blessing in that fact. Let me ask you this. I got 2 questions for you. If you had to kind of break it down, going through watching your 2.5-year-old, now you're 4.5-year-old, going through the last 2 years, how it's affected your faith, how would you describe that?
I know for me, it's opened my heart up to God more, knowing that I can't control everything. I can't fix everything for my family. And the amount of trust I place in him now is grown a lot by this experience. My outreach to other people, I feel like it's made me a lot more focused in my faith. the importance of having Jesus in your heart to know that we're not guaranteed tomorrow. And how many people have I not had that conversation with that could be gone tomorrow, whether it be a car accident or a disease or, an act of violence. And how short life can be has definitely been made more apparent to me. And what I need to be focusing on, putting importance to, has definitely changed. And my own personal outreach, I'm trying to read more now. I'm trying to fill my mind and my heart with Christian books, devotionals, self-improvement, and trying to share our story with people. That's why we're here today. How unfortunate would it be to have all these experiences and to not talk about it, to not try to share it with people who are already believers, people who maybe they're just kind of dipping their toe into the water and thinking about this, and maybe they have those questions of how can you be a Christian when God lets bad things happen? I'm here to tell you, Satan causes bad things to happen. God is here to help guide you through them and to make good out of it. And I believe that through this experience, my son is going to grow up to be a good Christian man, to lead his family and children, and to help grow God's kingdom through his story. And if that isn't God's plan, if it is for him to die at a younger age, because maybe that's going to bring more people to faith, and that's something we have to be okay with, because it'll be for the greater good. And you got to think about, if one person comes to faith because of the story, how many people does that person bring to faith? You think about the Billy Grahams and, those people that just, have thousands and thousands of people that have come to faith because of them. Who brought Billy Graham to faith?
Very much so.
Is my son's story going to create the next Billy Graham? Is there going to be thousands of people that see God's kingdom because of Christian? We can't see that now. And that's what's so hard for people. But when we meet God, when my time's up, I'm going to get to see the whole story. And I might even see the whole story before my time's up. Just how much this experience has impacted the world. Maybe not the world, maybe my next door neighbor, and maybe he impacts the world. You just don't know.
Like a chain reaction. It's like dominoes in a lot of ways. It takes one domino to set off another domino, but he just keeps going. I love how our faith spreads like that. How our story can be carried on and inspire other people and their stories. Arielle, let me ask you this. If you had another set of parents in front of you right now that are just entering that battle with their kid, what advice would you give them?
First, I think I would listen more than talk, because being at a different place right now and knowing things just don't always end up the same.
Sure.
I'm on some support groups online and just seeing the huge differences in how treatment affects children and how Christian has been somehow relatively unscathed so far. It's really mind-blowing almost how healthy he still is through his treatment. His immunity numbers keep shooting through the roof. Like everybody's shocked. He's just so healthy, even with all of this chemo. I would really listen. I would listen and I would tell them to share anything that comes to mind with God and don't shut him out. Through the bad times of this journey, I already talked about I shut God out and I'm silent, which I feel like is the worst thing that I can do in that situation. If I'm angry, give it to God. If I'm questioning, give it to God. If I'm happy, give it to God. If I'm thankful, give it to God. If I am just want to scream and pull my hair out and cannot understand, give it to God. In every situation, give it to God. That would probably be my advice. And just to have those people around you that you can trust with those feelings and with those emotions. But most importantly, to never give up that dialogue between God and yourself.
And those are some great words from my friend Arielle Black and her husband Kyle. Guys, when you see your child going through something like this, I gotta imagine it's tough. We have great comfort in Romans 5:3-4 that tells us that we rejoice in sufferings, much like the Blacks are doing, knowing that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope. Often we're asked, how can you go through this and still be positive, still have hope? The Blacks are a great example of this. They're rejoicing in their struggles. They're seeing God in the struggle. And they're allowing God to work in their lives and in the lives of the people around them. I know how heartbreaking it must be for them at times. The Bible tells us that children are a crown to the aged, and parents are the pride of their children. Proverbs 17:6. It also tells us children are a heritage from the Lord, offspring a reward from him. Like arrows in the hand of a warrior are children born in one's youth. That's Psalms 127:3-4. And even in the uncertainty, like Kyle had talked about, Kyle doesn't know what God's plans are for his child. But one thing is for certain, just as the Blacks refuse to accept defeat, this kid's going to inspire others. He already has. He's inspired me. He's going to put up a good fight, and he's going to leave an amazing story, regardless of whether he's 7 or 70. He's going to have an amazing testimony. And I pray his days are long. And I pray that he gets to see his children. I pray that he gets to hold their hand, walk beside them. I pray that he gets the blessing of gray hair one day. That's something I yearn for. I pray the blessing on him of grandchildren. When it comes to Christian and his situation, he is surrounded by an army of loving people, of God-fearing Christians that are praying for him, be it family, friends, or even those from afar. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope. This is one area where the Blacks and I completely agree. Would we like to be around for many years to come? Sure. I want to see that little boy grow up, and I want him to be a warrior for Christ. I want him to take his story and give it to the masses. My goal one day is to have Christian sitting in front of me doing a podcast about his situation. I would love that. I'd love to go and buy his book, as his dad said. I pray that little boy has that opportunity. I pray that he grows up to be strong and mighty. In my eyes, Christian already is mighty. He might be a little guy, but he's got a big heart. He's got big fight. But it's such a comfort to know that even in our infirmities, God is made strong, and that God will take the weak and show his mighty hand, and that we as humans can be that mighty hand for him. I know this much. If I live a long time, if Christian lives a long time, we're blessed. If God uses us to help bring others to Christ through our struggles, then, man, we've served a mighty purpose. And if our days are shorter, then so be it. That just means heaven is our reward sooner than later. And at some point, our loved ones join us if they've accepted Christ as their Lord and Savior. But I refuse to accept defeat. Instead, they're using their faith as a weapon. They're praying for victories. They're relying on the Lord, and they're allowing him to work in their lives. That's what it takes. God is capable of healing. He's capable of mighty things. I want to challenge you guys to use your weaknesses as your greatest strengths. I want to challenge you guys to not just lie down, to fight, just as Christian is doing right now. Even though he's tiny, man, he's mighty, and his parents are being faithful throughout the struggles. His parents aren't blaming God for what's happening. His parents aren't cursing God for this sickness coming upon their children. Instead, they're trusting him, and they're trusting that God's going to provide that healing. In reality, we already have the victory. God promised that one day we would get a new body. We would be made whole. Not a body filled with sickness or issues like my heart. And that will happen. I know it'll happen because Christ told us it would happen. And I trust in that. Kyle and Arielle trust in that as well. I admire how they are looking forward and they're not looking backwards. I admire how they're looking up instead of fearing. I admire how they're putting their precious child and his life into the care of God, and that God just keeps showing up time and time again. That God has provided them a great support system, that God has taken care of Christian, and that they are being held each step of the way. And I pray that this next year goes smooth, sound, and that little boy can go into remission and stay there, and that cancer will be gone. And I pray through that victory that he'll give others hope, and he will give others courage at a time in their lives that they need it. This kid is a walking, talking miracle. I love what his parents are doing for him. I love how they care for him. I love how they love their son. And not just Christian, but his brother as well. They're family four, and they're going through this together. But they're not alone. They have a lot of prayer warriors such as themselves. So guys, I want to encourage you to be praying for Kyle and Arielle. Be praying for Christian and his brother. Pray for complete healing. In the meantime, allow God to use them for the purpose of helping others see his amazing grace and his amazing power. And most of all, I pray that Christian would just be healed. Well, that's it for this week's Keep Digging. If you or someone you know are a Christian and incorporate faith into your life, job, your service, your community, or using your faith as you go through a tough situation like that of Christians, we'd love to hear about it. Send me an email at KeepDiggingToday, that's KeepDiggin, D-I-G-G-I-N, no G, today at gmail.com. Also, remember to subscribe at Podbean, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are available. Show us some love, leave us a rating, write a review, and support the podcast. We definitely appreciate it. Next week, we'll be visiting with Amanda Baugh of the Amanda Baugh Band. We'll hear about how she overcame stage fright, sexual abuse, and drug abuse to use her incredible voice for the Lord, sharing her story and the struggle that has given so many hope. Guys, welcome to 2019. I hope you enjoyed the show today. We'll see you next week on Keep Digging. Until then, guys, just keep fighting and just keep digging.
Faith, family, fight.
There may be only minutes, seconds left of someone's life. Why waste time?
Just keep digging.